I'm 73 years old, and I'm about to upset some people. Because everything you've been taught about getting older, the part where you grind now and live later, is a lie. And I didn't learn that from a book. I learned it when my heart tried to kill me. In the middle of a meeting. Before we get into it, if you've ever told yourself, I'll do it later, or you've been living on autopilot and you can feel it, hit like, subscribe, and share this with someone you love. Not because it's inspirational, because one day you're going to need it. At 52, I was what people call successful. Partner at my firm. Nice house. Respect. The kind of life that looks clean on paper. My calendar was always full. My voicemail always had messages. My email was basically a living organism. And I wore that like a badge. I used to say things like, I'll slow down after this quarter, or once this deal closes, or when the kids are older, and I meant it. That's the scary part. Most people don't lie to themselves on purpose. They just believe the story everyone keeps repeating. Then one Tuesday, I was sitting in a glass conference room arguing about quarterly projections. I can still see it. The gray carpet with those little blue squares. The stale coffee. The marker squeaking on the whiteboard while someone drew a line that was supposed to represent growth. I remember looking down at my notes and noticing my hand felt wrong, not painful, just unfamiliar, like it wasn't fully mine. Then the room shifted. Not like dizziness, exactly. More like someone tilted the entire world a few degrees to the left and didn't tilt it back. I tried to talk. I tried to make a joke. I tried to power through it, because that's what I did. That's what I'd trained myself to do. But my chest tightened, and my breath turned shallow and thin, like I was trying to breathe through a straw. I remember thinking, this is inconvenient. That's what my brain served up in the moment. Not I'm dying, just, this is going to mess up my day. And then I wasn't in the meeting anymore. I woke up under harsh lights with tubes in my arms and a dry mouth that made swallowing feel like sandpaper. There was a machine nearby making a steady, indifferent sound, beep, beep, like it was keeping time. My wife was in the corner, not composed, not strong, not pretending. She was crying in a way I had never seen before, silent, shaking, like her body couldn't figure out how to hold it all. Tried to sit up, and my whole body protested. A nurse came in, calm as if this was a normal Tuesday, which, for her, it was. Then the doctor showed up and said the phrase that still irritates me. You're lucky. Lucky. Like this was some scratch-off ticket I nearly lost. Like coming face to face with the fact that my life could end in a fluorescent room with strangers was a fortune. But he was right. Because lying there with nothing to do but think, I realized something terrifying. I had been living on autopilot. Okay. Not because I was lazy, not because I didn't care. 'Cause I was doing what a lot of us do, chasing a version of life I thought I was supposed to want. Okay. And once you've built that machine, once you've fed it your time, your health, your relationship doesn't stop on its own. It just asks for more. In that bed, I did something I hadn't done in decades. I asked myself a question, one I'd avoided because it felt dramatic. If I die today, What have I actually left behind? Not the house, not the retirement account. Oh, no. The job title on my business card. I mean, what did I leave behind in people, in memories, in love, in the parts of me that mattered when nobody was watching? And the answer was not what I wanted it to be. The achievements were real, sure, but they felt flimsy, like awards made of paper. What felt solid, what felt heavy, were the things I hadn't done. The trip I always said I'd take someday. The conversations I postponed. The way I kept people at arm's length because I was busy. Here's the biggest lie you can live your whole life inside. I have time. You hear it everywhere. You say it without noticing. I'll call my dad when work slows down. I'll visit when things settle. I'll start taking care of myself after this project. I'll travel when I retire. I'll write the book when I have space. But the problem is, the goalposts move. Not because you're weak, it's because life is designed to keep going. There's always another quarter, another bill, another obligation, another crisis, another responsible reason to delay being a human being. A few days after my heart attack, still in that hospital bed, I watched my phone light up with emails. Not messages like, "I love you," not, "We're scared," not, "We need you." Subject lines, deadlines, meeting links. And I remember thinking something cold and sharp. If I died, they would replace me by next month. Maybe sooner. And that wasn't an insult. It was just reality. The firm would continue. The market would continue. The world would keep spinning. The only thing that would stop instantly was my chance to be present for the people who actually knew my face. And I wish I could tell you I had this heroic transformation right there in the hospital, like in the movies. I didn't. What I had was dread. I had regret showing up early, like it was tired of waiting for old age, because I remembered my father. He died when I was 45. We had a complicated relationship, the kind where nobody's fully innocent and nobody's fully cruel. Just years of small misunderstandings that harden into distance. And I used to tell myself we'd talk when things calmed down. I'd skip Sundays because I was exhausted. I'd ignore calls because I was in the middle of something important. Then one day I got the call I wasn't ready for. Heart attack. Gone within hours. And do you know what I regret? Not the fights. Not who was right. I regret the small things. The dinners I skipped. The Sundays I didn't call. Okay? The way I treated time like it was a credit card with no limit. Okay? It isn't. 3 years ago, I went to the funeral of a friend of mine, 68. Okay? He worked 70-hour weeks his entire life. Built a business. Made real money. Real success. He always said he'd slow down next year. Next year came, and he had a stroke. At his funeral, his son stood up, hands shaking, and said something I can still hear clearly. My father was a successful man, but I barely knew him. I remember sitting there, staring at the carpet, feeling my stomach sink, 'cause I could see myself in that coffin. Not literally, emotionally. The same story, the same delay, the same belief that you can postpone your life until it's convenient. So after my heart attack, I made changes. Not flashy ones. Not sell everything and move to a beach changes. Real ones, quiet ones, the kind that show up in your calendar. I stepped back at work. I started saying no. And at first, it was uncomfortable because success trains you to feel guilty when you're not producing. It trains you to think rest is weakness. It trains you to believe you have to earn the right to enjoy being alive. But I started doing something radical. I started treating time like it was finite, because it is. I called people instead of meaning to. I took my kids out one at a time and listened instead of advising. I started saying I love you out loud, even when it felt awkward, even when it wasn't a holiday, even when nothing special was happening. Because here's what nobody tells you. Later doesn't feel like later when it arrives. It feels like suddenly. And then it's over. Over the last 21 years, I traveled to places I'd always postponed, not as some trophy, as proof to myself that I wasn't waiting for permission anymore. I repaired relationships I'd let rot not because I could erase the past, but because I finally understood something simple. Pride is expensive. Regret costs more. I forgave people I'd kept on trial in my head for decades. Not because they deserved it. Because carrying anger is heavy, and at a certain age, you start asking, why am I using my remaining strength for this? And then there are my grandchildren. 3 of them. When I look at them, I don't see the future like people say. I see a countdown they don't know they're in yet, okay? I see them stressed and anxious and chasing things that don't love them back, okay? And I try to tell them what I'm telling you. But most young people can't really hear it, not because they're bad, but because they're in the storm. When you're young, time feels infinite. It feels like a background setting. And then one day, it becomes the main character. So I'm saying it now clearly, without the polite sugar on top. Every day, you're getting closer to death. And I'm not saying that to be dark. Okay. I'm saying it because it's the most clarifying truth you can accept. It changes what you tolerate. It changes what you chase. It changes what you're willing to sacrifice your health for. It changes what you choose to do with a random Tuesday. Here's the moment that still hits me hardest. Not the heart attack. Not the hospital. It was months later. I was at home, healthier, back on my feet, and I had a choice. Work late again, or leave on time. Old me would have stayed. Old me would have said, this matters. But I looked at the clock, felt that little tug of guilt hand. Then I imagined my wife crying in that hospital room. I imagined my kids getting used to a version of me that was always almost available. And I walked out. I drove home, sat at the table and ate dinner slowly, like it wasn't something to rush through. My daughter told a story, and I actually listened without thinking about email. My son laughed, and for a second I saw the kid he used to be. And I remember thinking, right there, with nothing dramatic happening, this is the life I kept postponing. No applause. No title. No achievement. Just presence. And I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Relief, like I had finally stopped running. If you take one thing from this, let it be this. Your regrets won't haunt you because you failed at work. They'll haunt you because you postponed love. You postponed joy. You postponed being honest about what you actually want. And time doesn't negotiate. If this hit you in the chest the way it hit me, do 3 things. Hit like, subscribe, and share this with one person you care about. And in the comments, answer this honestly. What's one thing you've been putting off that you going to start this week? Because someday isn't a day on the calendar. The clock is ticking. What are you going to do with your time?